I grew up in this little town called Frankfurt. If you've never heard of it, don't worry, because nobody else has either. It's in the middle part of Georgia, about 45 minutes to an hour below Atlanta, and it's in the middle of the woods, off the beaten path. Frankfurt is one of those towns with a bait shop, a gas station, a post office, 2 good restaurants, and 3 stoplights, but only 2 of them work regularly. One of the restaurants is also the gas station and the bait shop, so you can get your gas, get your worms, and get a bite to eat on the way out of town, if that's what you're after. What Frankfurt does have is several good fishing spots, which is about the only reason that locals stay. It's got a town square of sorts. There's a main street and some little shops that usually rotate between cell phone stores and knick-knack emporiums. But nothing stays for long in Frankfurt. It's a close-knit community, and the locals tend to push out anything that doesn't belong. There are no Dollar Generals here, no Family Dollars. We're probably too small to warrant a Walmart. All the businesses are locals, and if you don't like it, then you can damn sure go somewhere else. The people in Frankfurt are nice as anyone can be in a small town. But don't let that fool you. They may smile at you and take your money, but most of them will forget you the second you're gone. There's a mean streak in them, and they don't like outsiders. They have their own ways, they have their own secrets, and they have a strange sort of power that only they know about. Case in point, they erased my uncle when I was about 12 years old. Well, not so much erased as forgot him out of existence. Uncle Danny to us kids, was about 10 years older than most of us. He was the youngest of my mom's siblings, barely old enough to drink, but that didn't seem to have stopped him from spending most of his teenage years pickled. Uncle Danny had a drinking problem, and it was a problem that quickly morphed into something worse. Uncle Danny was not content to do a little drinking and then stumble home. My grandmother told us kids to be careful around him, because when he got drinking, it always led to helling. Helling's what Grandma always called it, but what it amounted to was destruction. Uncle Danny would drive down Main Street and throw bottles through windows. He would get into fights with people on the sidewalk and then tell the cops that they assaulted him. He would steal things. He would take people's animals, and on occasions he would even take people's cars, whether by taking their keys or by hot-wiring them, which seemed to be something he could only do in a state of drunkenness. My uncle spent more nights in jail than at home, but the townspeople put up with him. They would say he added local color and gritted their teeth any time he had to be hauled away by Sheriff Thurston. The town was growing tired of his drunken shenanigans, but that wasn't what made them forget him. Uncle Danny was forgotten because of the night he killed Janice Stevens. Janice Stevens was 16 years old, and it was pretty obvious that she was going places. She was set to graduate high school a year early and wanted to go into medicine. She was looking at a full-ride scholarship to several medical programs, and people were proud to have known her. Frankfurt doesn't often get people like Janice, and it appears they don't get to keep them either. Janice was coming home from her job at the diner, the only good place in town to eat, when Uncle Danny ran her over. He says it was an accident, but the police said he ran his car up onto the sidewalk in order to get her. In Uncle Danny's defense, it was possible that he was so drunk he didn't even realize what he was looking at. I'm not trying to justify what he did. I'm only saying that it's entirely plausible that he didn't even know he was running over a person. Uncle Danny had a little compact truck that he was fond of, and when he drove away from the scene of the accident, something that no one but a single person actually saw. There was a new dent in the front bumper, and Janice Stevens was very dead. He was arrested, because of course he was, and they had to ship him up to the next town to keep the mob from hanging him right there in the square. They were mad, as they should be, and they wanted the kind of justice that only seems to exist in 3 stoplight towns. Sheriff Thurston wasn't happy about transferring my uncle, but he bragged that it'd be an open and shut case for sure. He said there was no way that Uncle Danny could manage to get out from under this one. But he'd been wrong. Frankfurt doesn't actually have a judicial seat, and they had to transfer the case up to Niles so that it could be seen by Judge Sanderson himself. Sheriff Thurston said this would be a slam dunk because everyone knew that Judge Sanderson did not like drunks or people who hurt children. The sheriff had told anyone who would listen as he sat in Junior's pub the night before Uncle Danny's trial that the trial would be a slam dunk and that the jury would probably come back in less than 5 minutes, and they would never have trouble with Daniel Schofield ever again. The problem was that the sheriff had gotten a little ahead of himself. The witness to the crime turned out to be a drunk who had come out of the same bar that Uncle Daniel had left. Uncle Daniel had also managed to get a good lawyer who argued that there was no proof that Daniel had hit the girl. They argued that the dent in the front bumper was proof enough, but there seemed to be some confusion about where that particular dent had come from. The girl's family had testified to the fact that she was responsible and an honors student, but all that really told them was that the death had been very unfortunate. But it had still happened. In the end, the jury had actually deliberated for about 15 minutes before they decided that there wasn't enough evidence to convict Daniel Schofield of the crime for which he was being accused. He wasn't found innocent, but they decided it was a mistrial, and he was allowed to return home. The people of Frankfurt, however, did not agree. They knew they couldn't kill him. They'd be no better than him if they did. So they decided to do something much worse. My mom told me all this years after it happened, of course. I was just a kid, and we were mostly kept out of it. I remember bits and pieces of it, but most of it's a blur to me. Except for the end, of course. She said they took him from his bed one night, dragged him down to the town square, and the whole town informed him of his fate. It was all very draconian. Torches were burning in the town square, and the people of the town had all come to stand before him. He had asked what they meant to do. He wanted to know if they were going to kill him or exile him, but Sheriff Thurston said that wasn't going to be enough this time. From now until the end of your days, no one in this town will acknowledge you. You have become an unperson to us, and anyone who fails to ignore you will join you in the forgetting. We have been patient with you, Daniel, hoping that you would grow up. But since it does not appear that that was going to happen, you will be forgotten. After this moment, no one who resides in this town will speak to you or acknowledge that you ever existed, ever again. And that was that. The town left my uncle standing there, confused and a little bit afraid. He had laughed at them at the time, telling them how ridiculous this all sounded. He wouldn't just go away because they wanted him to. He was a person, and they couldn't just write him out of existence like that. He left and headed for home, but he found there was no home for him to go back to. There was nothing for him to go back to at all. He banged on the door as he called for my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, and for anyone who would let him inside. I was away at my cousin's house, all of us covertly sent somewhere else, so we wouldn't have to bear witness to what was going on. But my mother said he banged on the door for hours before finally going away. It took all I had not to let him in. But in Frankfurt, we listened to the sheriff. In Frankfurt, the sheriff is the law, and the law is not questioned. Also, we knew he'd finally gone too far, and that his punishment was just. I saw my Uncle Danny a few more times, but I wasn't allowed to talk to him. He would wave and try to get our attention, but Mom always pulled us away and told us not to speak to him. She would say that Uncle Danny wasn't in his right mind and that he might hurt us if we weren't careful. I remember waving at him once, waving at him as if I was the only one who could actually see him. But by then, it was too late. Uncle Danny did not do well in exile. He tried to get people's attention, but even when he pushed them down or yelled at them, they always just went back to what they were doing, got back to business as usual. The sheriff stood between him and the people more than once with his back to my Uncle Danny, and no amount of screaming or threats would make him turn around. Uncle Danny, however, wouldn't go quietly. He tried to steal. He tried to commit vandalism. He even pushed people into traffic, but Mom said that something strange started to happen to him. He would grab for things, but his hands had started passing right through them. People refusing to acknowledge him made him less substantial somehow. But he kept trying for months before he finally began to accept his fate. It took about a year for things to escalate beyond the point of no return. But I was there to witness my uncle when he was finally forgotten for good. I was on my way to school, my mother's orders not to speak to my uncle still fresh in my ears. I was passing Clausen's drugstore when I looked down an alley and I saw him there. He was hunkered up with his knees against his chest, and he looked so miserable that I almost spoke to him. I started to walk away, but something pulled me back. It was a feeling, maybe an intuition, and I'd spoken the first syllable of his name when he started to fade. He didn't go all at once, the way they sometimes do in movies. He went slowly, like someone who's losing their shadow as the sun rises higher in the sky. Suddenly I could see through him, and then all of a sudden he just disappeared. The place where he'd been sitting was empty of everything but a small wet spot where he had vanished. I didn't go to school that day. I ran home to tell my mother what had happened, and her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She was washing dishes when I came pelting into the kitchen, yelling about how Uncle Danny had completely vanished. I remember wincing as she dropped a plate into the sink, and I heard it shatter as it hit something else in the soapy water. My mother sobbed a single time, but when she turned around, her face was normal. Well, not normal. Her face was fixed into the rictus of a smile, and she looked as if she might start crying and laughing all at once. "Who, dear?" she asked, as if she hadn't heard me. I repeated it, telling her Uncle Danny had vanished, but she just shook her head and went back to washing dishes. I never spoke of him again, not until I came back from college the first time. I told someone about it one night when I was drunk, and they laughed and said that was impossible. They said people don't just cease to exist because they're ignored, and they said I must either be making it up or it was something I misremembered from when I was a kid. I'd gone home that summer and asked my mom about it, and that was when the whole story had come out. It's too late to do anything for Uncle Danny now. He'd been gone for nearly a decade. and remembering him couldn't hurt anyone now. She said even though he had deserved it, even though he had killed that girl and gotten away with it, she still missed him bitterly. He was my baby brother. It was wrong of them to just ask me to forget him, but Daniel committed the crime. He had to take the punishment. I think about that a lot. The way they just willed him out of existence. Frankfurt is still a tiny little town with less than 5,000 people. It's much the same as it was before I was born. But knowing its secrets and the power that's possessed there makes it feel a little less comfortable than it used to be.
Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel, so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.